Hey guys, how's it going? It's Sean. In this video, I want to give you my observations of American police in the United States versus police here in South Korea. So I've been living in South Korea for almost 8 years now. I'm just going off of my experiences, what I've heard from foreign friends and Korean friends, and my general knowledge of Korean laws and Korean history. It's very possible that I make a mistake in what I'm saying, so if I do, let me know down in the comments and we can talk about it. So in my observation, Korean police seem to be very non-violent. They seem to be more friendly. And they're definitely not intimidating. I don't really feel nervous when I see a police car or when I see police on the street. Unless I'm driving, then I want to be super careful, of course, because I don't want to get a ticket, you know? But in general, they seem to be a part of the community, and people aren't really nervous about calling them or talking to them. I will say too that it seems like they don't have a lot of power. I've heard many stories from both Koreans and foreign friends of mine that in Korea, if someone does something bad, they're easily let off with a warning or a small fine. Also, I've often heard of Korean police saying something like, "Oh, let's try to understand their situation. They were drunk, they were tired, they were angry, they were stressed because of a recent divorce." So it seems like Korean police often have this mentality of trying to understand and diffuse a situation peacefully. Maybe this is more of Korean culture though. I remember one time I was in Itaewon and I was outside of a club and I saw this drunk guy just punch a security guard. The security guard was holding his nose like this, and the drunk guy was just super angry, just throwing his arms around, and the security guy did nothing. He just told him to calm down and to go away. This blew my mind. If that had happened in the US and someone punched a security guard, that person would be on the ground and the security guards would be beating him or her up. It was really crazy to see that the security guard did nothing. Another example I have in Korean culture of trying to understand the other person's position if they do something wrong is when I was in Itaewon filming, again Itaewon, and this homeless person came by and they knocked my camera over. And I was really angry. I guess they thought that I was filming them, which I wasn't. And I really wanted to call the police. I wanted this person to be punished. This is an expensive piece of equipment I have, you know? And the Korean friend I was with, who was helping me film, said, "Don't call the police. This person already has enough problems. Let's just try to be understanding." And I was really frustrated. I really wanted to punish this person because you can't just do that to other people's stuff, you know? Maybe that's the American inside of me. I want justice, you know? A while back, I was really interested about this culture and how the police in Korea and the authorities in Korea seem to be very forgiving and weak. I'm not saying that they're weak people, I'm just saying that they're not strong in their punishment and their justice. I want to make that distinction because I actually have two friends here in Korea. They're Koreans and they're police officers. So I don't think that they're weak. I just think they don't have a lot of power in the system. So a while back when I was really interested in this topic, I learned about Korean history and Jeon Do-hwan and his military dictatorship. I learned that there was a lot of violence in Gwangju particularly, and it's a very sad part of Korean history where the police were too powerful and they were violent and they used their guns to solve problems. So because of that, it seems like a lot of Koreans are hesitant to give the police too much power. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, just look at North Korea. If you give one group of people too much power, look what happens. In North Korea, they literally kill people who disagree with them or break the law, even if it's a small law, you know? So of course, I'm in general a fan of this kind of decentralization of power. Just look at my Bitcoin t-shirt. Of course, I'm a fan of decentralization. I know I'm summarizing this really complicated history very simply in a few sentences. I know that. But anyway, because of this culture, it definitely feels like bad people in Korea can sometimes do things without getting punished too harshly. Especially as a foreigner, if someone did something bad to me, I might be kind of hesitant to call the police because I'm not sure how much they could do for me. Also, if someone like punches me or is violent towards me, I would be really hesitant to defend myself because I've heard stories of people being punished for defending themselves physically here in Korea. But it's not just foreigners in Korea. I think a lot of Koreans feel the same way. A lot of Koreans think that the police don't have enough power. they're too weak, or they just don't do enough to punish bad people who commit crimes. And I guess that's where the 검수완박 movement comes from here in Korea. So the new president of South Korea thinks that the 검찰, or the Supreme Court in Korea, should hold more power than the 경찰, or the police. A lot of Koreans are really frustrated and want the police to have more power. I can't get too deep into the 검수완박 situation because I'm not an expert, I just know the basics. But the point is, a lot of South Koreans are split on this issue as well. So now I want to talk about the American police. So in the United States, the police are quite intimidating. I definitely get nervous when they're around, when I see a cop car, or when I see cops walking by. Even if I haven't done anything wrong, they're still very intimidating. I feel like I'm being judged or something. So they're definitely scary to both criminals and many citizens. There's a culture in America of never talk to the police, even if you haven't done anything wrong. There's nothing good that can come out of it. Police in the United States have all sorts of guns, small guns, big guns, gadgets on their belt. They have all sorts of fancy cars and whatnot. I will say though that the police in the United States have a very hard job, especially in big cities. Also, it must be very frustrating for them to have this intimidating and scary reputation, even to the people who they're trying to protect. But I understand the frustration of citizens, and I understand why they think that they're scary. So going along with this, there have been a lot of protests in the United States against the police. Many people think that they have too much power, that they use their guns too much, that they are corrupt. I won't give my opinion on these specific protests, but suffice to say, many people in the US want police to have less power. So that's kind of interesting, right? In Korea, a lot of Koreans want the police to have more power. In the US, a lot of people want the police to have less power. I don't know what the perfect formula is. I don't know the exact amount of power the police should have in any country. I'm all about empowering citizens to protect themselves, to defend themselves, just to not rely too much on the government for protection. Maybe that's one of the positives of Korean men going to the military for 2 years. You teach someone hand-to-hand combat, you teach them how to use weapons, you teach them discipline. I think that's a really good thing, to have more powerful and disciplined citizens. Again, I'm very weary of relying too much on the government for anything, really. Anyway though, as an American, I will say that it is very satisfying to know that if someone does something wrong or there's a criminal, there's a good chance that they're going to get punished. When everything works out well, there's a real sense of justice. Anyway, that's all I have to say for this video. This is an extremely complicated situation, but I just wanted to share some of my thoughts. What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you're currently studying English, I highly recommend you join my channel membership. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.